everybody, and welcome to Cremona for round 4 of the World Superbikes in 2025. Apologies that we haven't been able to bring you most of the session. A technological glitch has caused us to lose access. But we're back now with a total of 22 minutes to go. Let's cross. You can see the technical glitch is still affecting us. Let's cross over now.
To get up to 6th place in the Superpole race, but otherwise just to be anywhere near the top 10 was some achievement. Hasn't been able to replicate his Phillip Island form since arriving in Europe.
Yeah, and for Jari, it's one of those situations. As a rookie, you're looking for those weekends where you're really able to show what you can do, and we've been able to see already this season that the Ducati can be a really strong package. But for Montella, it's going to be 4 or 5 rounds a year where he's going to be really strong this season, and he needs to take advantage of that. But we've already seen from Scott Redding as well on the Bonobo bike that it's not an easy bike just to jump onto and have those immediate results and find that consistency as an independent team. It's about having the balance all the way through the season. So maybe for the likes of Montella, we just have to look at what his really good weekends are to see how good he can be on the Superbike, and then try and find that balancing point as well for somewhere between the middle of those really good weekends and the bad weekends.
Yeah, I think Montella's going to be pretty pleased with what he's done this season so far. 2 top 10 finishes on Sunday in Phillip Island, 10th place in race 2 in Portimao, 8th place in the Superpole race in Assen. Obviously, there have been worse results than that. He will have been disappointed not to get much out of race 2, considering how well he did over the 10-lap sprint. But for a rookie with an independent team, I think he's made a good step up from the Supersport class.
Yeah, and I think that one of the big things for Montella as well is he's been able to qualify pretty well all the way through the season. He's 13th, 12th, 12th, so he's in and around that 4th row of the grid in each Superpole session. If he's able to consolidate that to be a little bit closer to the front of that 4th row and the verge of the top 10, I think then it shows really good pace. It's just really difficult in World SBK now, and it's one of those situations where it's very easy to maybe be just that little 10th of a second off, and then suddenly you find yourself 1 or 2 rows further down the grid than you could be, and once you're down the grid, it's really difficult to make that progress. But I think Montella's been able to jump onto that bike and show that he can ride a superbike, and that's the first thing that everyone's looking for a rookie.
Sam Lowe's out on track now for his second stint, and he's really hit the ground running this weekend in Cremona. That's a good start for him.
Sam's been so strong all the way through the start of the season. If you think back to Phillip Island, it was a bit of a duff tyre in race 1 that cost him in the opening stint. His pace after the pit stop was really strong, so Phillip Island was really good. Portimao, he has the crash in race 1 whenever he's trying to chase down a podium or a top 4 finish, and at least you've got that speed. And then obviously what we saw in Assen was really impressive as well. So Lowe's, he deserves to be up there inside the top 6 in the World Championship. He's been a strong contender through the start of the season.
Yeah, 6th place in the standings, a point ahead of Andrea Iannone after 3 completed rounds. I think there's every reason for Lowe's to be pleased with that, and if the podiums start to flow more regularly, then we'll really underline that progress and step forward he's made.
Yeah, and I think that no reason for him not to be able to make that step. It was interesting in Phillip Island, it was his best weekend of his World Superbike career, and then he's been able to kick on from that as well. A lot of positives to take, obviously last time out in Assen in particular.
I think the best of it is the fact that, as I was saying earlier on, Redding has dropped back somewhat since Phillip Island. Iannone's been inconsistent since Phillip Island, whereas Sam Lowe's has kind of maintained or even improved his performances. And that looks like a big one as well for Michael van der Mark, coming down with just under 20 minutes remaining in free practice 1.
Looks like the same place maybe as Iannone there, just at the end of the back straight. You can see the damage done to van der Mark's bike, and that's going to be the end of his session. 20 minutes left. They have to get that bike back to the pits and get a lot of work done to repair it, so that's a shame for van der Mark. And you can see the frustration for Mikey there as well, which we don't tend to see too often, but he's obviously blamed himself for that crash. And for Mikey, it's a tough start to the weekend, but for van der Mark at least, he's been able to get in 10 laps of some data, and it just goes away from underneath him there. So a bit of a strange one there for Mikey as well. Very different to the Iannone crash, but maybe just in a little bit hot there for Mikey. You can see there the bike moving around underneath him, so yeah, maybe just goes in a little bit too hot, and then whenever you're making those back shifts that little bit more aggressive or trying to just get the bike stopped a little bit quicker, it's easy to carry a bit too much speed with the lean angle in. So yeah, mistake there for van der Mark, and a costly mistake. But when you're coming into those corners. It's 300 k's an hour down in towards that turn 11. It's easy to brake 5 meters too late, and suddenly, because it's so much tighter, then it ends up being one of those situations where you just can't get the speed scrubbed off.
Yes, Michael van der Mark then coming down. And of course, the problem with that, the high speed down the back straight is that when you do come off into turn 11, it's likely to be a high speed one as well.
Yeah, and for turn 11, it's around about 100 k's an hour through the corner. So if you're just that 10 k's an hour too fast on the entry, it's a lot faster than you need to be through there. So Van der Mark gets caught out. It's interesting that we've seen Van der Mark, we've seen Ian One, we've seen Bautista all caught out. So 3 riders that have a bit of experience here from last year, but all of them just having their instance.
18 minutes remaining in free practice 1. Still Nicolo Bulliger and Danilo Petrucci in their pit boxes at the moment. Liam down in pit lane, what have you got for us?
Thank you very much, Alex. Down in Pata Yamaha with Paul Denning, team manager. Paul, 2 weeks or 3 weeks out of your victory in Assen with Andrea Locatelli. We've got Johnny Reid back. He's just going out on circuit for his second run. How is the team feeling? How are you all buoyed coming into this weekend after that victory in Assen for Andrea?
Yeah, I mean, Locker's win was a relief as much as a celebration, and yeah, well deserved on his part after pushing so hard for so many years and being so competitive and so many opportunities to win and it not quite happening. So delighted by that, but equally delighted to have Jonathan back in the box, and this being FP1 here at Cremona being the first step back on his road to full recovery and road to full competitiveness.
Just talking of Johnny there, obviously back out here in FP1 in Cremona for round 4. How was he feeling after his first run? Any issues there for Johnny?
I mean, his ankle will be sore, his foot will be sore, his forearms will be sore. That's just how it is when you've not ridden a superbike for 3 months and you jump on it and have to go the speed. But he's only half a second off Locker there in his first exit. He's not going to talk about his aches and pains and his stiffness and any restrictions, because all he wants is performance. So it's not going to be easy for him. I think we need to manage expectations this weekend a little bit, but the start he's made is super positive. Yeah.
It's great to hear that he's back and he's already half a second off Andrea. Coming into this weekend, obviously Assen was good, Portimao before that was good as well, but obviously Assen was the tip of the iceberg. How are you feeling coming into this weekend in Cremona? With the hot conditions here, will it be a bit more of a difficult weekend for you?
Difficult to say. I mean, Jonathan unfortunately didn't race here last year, so that's another barrier for him, in that he's got a lot less experience here than the rest of the field. And Locker didn't have his most stellar weekend here, so it's a track that hasn't seen success with us in the way that Assen and Portimao have in the past. So yes, statistically less easy, but the bike's definitely improved. Of course, Jonathan's taken his first steps back, but a rider's confidence also means a lot, and Locker's confidence is in a very different place at the moment.
And what is the target for the weekend? Top 5s or podiums again?
No, we've got to aim for the podium, but also you've got to do your best. If we do our best, that's all we can really ask for. And in this field, being as competitive as it is, doing your best might mean 6th place, and you've got to put up with that. So maximise what we have, aim for the podium is the plan.
Thank you very much, Paul. All the best this weekend.
Thank you very much.
You rejoin us live in commentary with Danilo Petrucci. 3 wins out of 3 here in Cremona last season, coming to grief from 2nd place in this free practice 1 session. Just back in with the flying lap, and Petrucci coming down. So a lot of incidents in this free practice 1 session so far, and even the man who's had such success here in Cremona last season, not immune.
Yeah, and we're half an hour into the session. We've seen some big riders have big crashes already, and for Petrucci there, you can see Barney in the middle of the shot, a shrug of his shoulders, but at least for Danilo, he's immediately fast, so he's got a good feeling with the bike. But that crash is a costly one for him as well. It just came through this section of the track. So for Petrucci, it's probably going to be the end of his session. And this is the moment in the session when a lot of teams and riders are actually able to get in a good long run as well. 7, 8, 9 laps to be able to get some good information for FP2.
Yeah, it's a good opportunity for the likes of Nicolo Bulliger and Toprak Razgatlioglu, of course, who haven't had those incidents. They've seen they go down, Bautista go down, Petrucci go down. They're riders who should be up at the front with them, but Bulliger, Razgatlioglu, they're going to have a little bit of an advantage here.
Yeah, and for Toprak, obviously, like we heard from Sean Muir, we see on screen now, but we heard from Sean earlier on about Toprak losing the mileage here from not racing at Cremona last year, and it's becomes really important to be able to get the knowledge of what he needs from the bike out here, because the last time he rode a bike here, it was in that pre-event test where track conditions were really tricky. We had a lot of riders having crashes. There was a lot of dirt and dust on the racetrack, so it was really difficult for the riders. So for Toprak, he's now trying to find out his braking strategies, like Sean said, because that's the most important thing for Toprak. And down in towards turn 11, that's where Michael van der Mark had his crash, and you could see for Toprak, as he got on the brakes there, he's still trying to figure out exactly how aggressive he can be down there, because they'll constantly make changes to that bike every time he comes into the pits, just because the knowledge changes so much for him each time.
Yeah, Toprak was saying just that one test here, and he said less than 40 laps as well, so it's not like it was going to be one that makes a big impact. He'll have done a fair chunk just this morning in free practice 1.
It'd be interesting to see just how much Toprak's style evolves from one session to the next round here, because into turn 1 there you could see that he was riding a little bit differently to some of the other riders, turning in a bit earlier. He wasn't using all the racetrack like you'd expect from Toprak. So for Razgadioglu, as he gains that confidence, he'll start to use more and more of the track as well and give himself the opportunity to go faster and faster. But this is a really tough circuit on a superbike because it is so different everywhere else. And I think it's one of the things that gives a bit of charm really to World SBK, that there are so many circuits that have big variety. We've gone from big Grand Prix style tracks, Phillip Island, into Portimao, into Assen, and now we come to Cremona, then we go to Most, and they're really different compared to each other. And I think that whenever you get to Donington as well and different places like that, it really does show that variety is what you have in this championship in terms of what the teams of riders have to set their bikes up for.
Interesting to see the style comparison through this final sector. It is completely unique here in Cremona, isn't it? The bowl, as we were calling it last season at turn 13, because of the banking, which the camera's really flattening out, but it's quite significant banking through turn 13 that spits you then out onto that short start-finish straight. Obviously, turn 11, the heavy braking at the end of the back straight. There's a little bit of everything here.
Yeah, I went for a run around the track, and it's one of those places where it's a short lap, but there's a lot put into it. And obviously, we've got that long back straight that takes up a big chunk of the mileage for the lap, but everything else really comes at you. In the opening sector, turn 1 and turn 2, where Petrucci crashed at turn 2, a lot of the times that's actually set up by turn 1 because the riders are taking them together as one corner really. So for the likes of Petrucci, just gets caught out by that. But we saw last year Nicola Buliga really struggled with learning his way around this place just because it didn't suit his natural style, and it doesn't really work towards any individual type of style as well, because the fact that you've got the heavy braking zones, you've got one corner leading into the next, you've got it where you're trying to get the bike turned up onto the fat part of the tyre as early as you can through certain sections as well. So it's a lot of variety around here, and it's a challenge to really figure it out.
Might not be the right style for everyone, but I think for running it's probably about right. Shortest of the season and nice and flat.
I like it.
10.5 minutes remaining in free practice 1. Nicola Buliga it is who leads the way. Toprak Razgadioglu and Alex Lowe's on improved laps here. We haven't really talked about BMotor very much in this free practice 1 session, but Alex Lowe's up in 5th, Axel Bassani in 7th. We saw that Lowe's went well here in Cremona last season. Perhaps they could be challengers to the Ducatis, who we expect to be pretty strong this weekend.
Yeah, it's a really important day for BMotor. Today they're launching their coffee machine in the hospitality, so everyone's excited for that. But it's a big weekend for them because it is a home round for them. Obviously, we're used to Provec being the Catalan team with Kawasaki's, but now they're an Italian manufacturer, and the Italian rounds are busy. I was speaking to Alex Lowe's yesterday, and he was flat out with photos and different media jobs yesterday, and it's good to see because they know that there's a lot of pressure on them for this weekend and they need to deliver. And 5th and 7th for Lowe's and Bassani, that's a good start to the weekend. We're half an hour into the weekend, so a lot can change, but it's a lot easier to be fast all the way through the weekend when free practice 1 is good. If you're chasing it all the way through the weekend, getting faster and faster, you're seeing improvements. But if you start well, it really does give you a good foundation for a strong weekend.
I do love it when every weekend is a home round, either for a rider or the team, or it's in the country of the manufacturer or whatever.
It was one of those for BMotor. It was quite interesting speaking to people down in the team. They said, well, Misano's our home round, but this is an Italian round and a manufacturer for them. They're going to have a lot of guests here, obviously, for BMotor, and it's an exciting new step for them, and I think that that's been one of the things that's really shone through for that team all the way through this season so far and through the winter. they're really enjoying the fact that everything is new and you're moving into each weekend trying to figure out how to make the bike work. Having spent so long with the Kawasaki, they knew how to get it into the operating window. They knew going to the circuit ultimately how fast they were going to be able to go. And now this season, everything's a little bit different and they're trying to find those steps. I think it's been a good start to the project for Pomona.
Yeah, and joking aside, it is a home run for Axel Bassani. I couldn't say that with a straight face after that conversation. But Bassani's one of those riders who had been here before the Superbike World Championship visited. And Bassani will be pretty optimistic about his chances this weekend after a good start to this season. 3 top 10 finishes in Phillip Island, suggested more was to come. A 9th and a 7th in the feature-length races. Oh dear. As we unfortunately lose Ryan Vickers. He just set a new personal best lap last time around, a second down on the fastest time of Nicolo Bulliger, and now he's the latest crash victim as early as the opening sector on his latest lap.
Yeah, and we've seen Vickers through the course of this season have a few incidents, obviously the big crash and the big moments in Phillip Island, but it's been a decent start to the season at times for Ryan, but he's trying to figure it out at a new circuit for him as well, and half an hour into the session he's another crasher. But when we've seen so many riders with a lot more experience in World SBK than him have crashes, it does show that it's maybe a little bit tricky out there for the riders in this session. It's pretty warm for this early in the day. It's already closing in on 40 degrees track temperature, and it's only going to get hotter and hotter today and tomorrow in particular. So for the riders, it's very different conditions to what we had last year.
Yes, we've had Petrucci, no less, the 3 times winner here in Cremona, come to grief. Obviously, Ione's been back out onto the circuit since his spill. Bautista has not, so it looks like the session could be ended for him, as for Michael van der Mark, as we said previously.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if we're able to see Bautista get himself back out, given the damage. But if they're able to do even an installation lap, to do that, you only need to leave pit lane with 1 second left on the clock. So they've still got 6.5 minutes to get something ready. But when we saw the pit box immediately, they weren't really engulfing the bike. They knew that it was going to be a bit of time to get that work done. So maybe they've already given up on this session and get ready for the afternoon session.
Yeah, only 6 minutes remaining now in free practice 1. A bit of a lull in this session at the moment. We've got Sam, Alex, Lowe's both in their pit boxes, Andrea Locatelli as well, and obviously Danilo Petrucci following his crash. Bulliger and Razgatlioglu going for slightly longer runs here. We pick up Toprak Razgatlioglu, 3rd in this session. Still learning the ropes here in Cremona, of course. Having not visited last season, he'd had that injury in Magny-Cours that cost him a few rounds in the latter stage of the campaign after his unprecedented run of consecutive victories. So a bit of a walk into the unknown for Toprak this weekend. Yeah,
we can see Toprak here on the #1 BMW. And Liam, you've been doing a little bit of ferreting down in pit lane for the reasons behind the crashes.
Yeah, obviously we've seen quite a few crashes out there in the circuit today, and I just spoke to Chris Gonshaw from BMW about the reason. I was trying to get a few people, but Chris was the one that was open to speak to us, and he just said it's just basically cleaning the circuit out there. It's a bit dusty, it's a bit dirty, so they're just basically cleaning the circuit out there, and it's just causing a few issues. So there's nothing untoward about it. It's just since it's a Queen circuit, that's the reason for it here in FP1.
Yeah, in Cremona, one of the busiest circuits in Europe for track days. This is a place that's used, I think, around 300 days a year. And it's different though when the World SBK riders come here. They take different lines and different approaches into some sections of the track. So maybe that little bit of dust and dirt out there, and you've got the farms all the way around the circuit as well. And there's been a fair bit of combining going on as well, just to prep the fields. So there is a fair bit of dust in the air here this weekend.
Yes, you didn't see the back of the car when I brought it in yesterday through the car parks that are effectively fields just around the outside of the circuit. Just going back to those incidents, we did see in free practice 1 last year the time significantly slower and picked up by a big margin. Obviously everyone's learning the circuit, but there was a lot of track cleaning here in the early stages last year as well.
Yeah, exactly. And last year it took round about the best part of the first full day to be able to get down to the pace that we've got right now. So Bulliger around about a half a second slower than the fastest free practice times we had last year. So with race rubber, we're down to pretty good times right from the start of the weekend. And that comes from a little bit more track knowledge, knowing a little bit more about how to get the bikes working around here. But the big thing is just to see if and when you've got that confidence to push on. And interesting to see there Iker Lacona and Javi Vierge jumping up into the top 7 as well. You'd imagine that they've gone out at the end of this session with a fresh tyre, just to give them that knowledge going into FP2. But good to be able to see Honda up there 6th and 7th right now. This is down into Bautista's side of the pit box, so the team's still working away. They've got 3 minutes left to get back out on track to be able to do an installation lap, and looks like they should be able to do that. Bautista's sitting there in his gloves and his helmet on, so he's ready to go once they're able to get him out there.
Yeah, just going back to the Hondas, Lecuona and Vierke had been outside of the top 10 for the majority of this session. They've now climbed up into 6th and 7th. Lecuona's on to improve. In fact, he's up on Bulga's time at the halfway mark on his latest lap, so this could be very good indeed for Ilkka Lecuona. Bulliger also going stronger with 3 minutes to go. Everyone's starting to kick on. 1.5 tenths of a second up as things stand. Nicolo Bulliger, we'll see, I'm sure, him come through the final sector. Here he is, off the final turn. And Nicolo Bulliger 129.158 to extend his advantage at the top of the timesheets over Danilo Petrucci. That's over 3/10 of a second now to Petrucci. Ilkka Lecuona just coming through the bowl, the final turn here in Cremona. And he currently sits in 6th position, 7/10 of a second down. He moves up to 4th. 129.621 for Ilkka Lecuona, so plenty of promise for him.
Yeah, and good to be able to see that for Honda. And speaking to people within Honda, Honda's always very quiet and coy about what they're actually going to say to you. But what's been interesting is it seems that the HRC team have made big changes to how they're trying to get the bike to work now, and they've gone down similar path to what Marowaki have been doing on MIE Honda for Taz McKenzie. So just changing some of the chassis parameters and the settings for what they want in their base setting, and it has helped. Honda's had some improvements over the course of the last few rounds, and we've been able to see Lecuona and Javi Vieira have good results. Vieira in particular has had a few standouts, so certainly for Honda there's some flashes of what they can do, but obviously contract year for both riders. The big question is going to be, will either of them stay there for next year? Because even at this stage, 6 years into the project, nobody really knows where Honda's at.
Yes, as far as Vierke and Lecuona are concerned, a 5th place in Portimao for Vierke, a 5th place last time out in Assen for Lecuona. So some signs of optimism in the last couple of rounds, as you say, and for Lecuona, of course, coming back from injury yet again, the sensation is that the only way is up for him. So good start in free practice 1 as far as the Hondas are concerned, certainly in this final stint, as Alvaro Bautista prepares himself to make his way back out onto track following a crash and only his 2nd flying lap in this free practice 1 session. It's taken him all the way to the last minute of the session to be able to get back out onto track.
Yeah, and 1 minute to go, we'll see if he leaves pit lane there. Team just double checking one detail there, but for Alvaro, he'll be able to get out, he'll do his installation lap, and then he'll come and do a practice start and come back to the pit, so he'll get 2 laps in just to at least make sure the bike is working okay.
Yes, the checkered flag will fall before he gets to do a proper flying lap, but at very least a shakedown at the end of this session just to make sure he's ready to get back out onto track for FP2 later on this afternoon. But Bautista's effectively lost the whole session.
Yeah, and you just can't afford to lose that mileage. Toprak's done 19 laps, and Nicola Buliga's done 19 laps. So for Alvaro Bautista, he's well behind in the mileage charts now, and we've seen this at times in the past for Bautista, where he can still go out in free practice 2 and do a full 20 laps in to start the session, and still put in round about that 30 laps for the day, maybe even 35 laps for the day, but you don't want to give those other riders that advantage. And the one thing that's probably a little bit in his favour is Ducati have a lot of data. They've got, you can see Sam Lowe's coming across the line now. He's going to finish the session inside the top 5, but they've also got Petrucci, Buliga, and everyone else that's out there, Scott Redding, Ian One up there in 11th and 12th position in this session. But they've got a lot of data, a lot of mileage, and it should help Bautista. And of course they were the bike to beat last season, so there's also the strong performances from last year to go off as we reach the end now of free practice 1. Nicolo Bulliga, the fastest man, with a 1 minute 29.158. Danilo Petrucci holding on to second despite his crash that robbed him of the second half of the session
Toprak Razgatlioglu third fastest. Then Ikaleko Sam Lowe's. Alex Lowe's just making his way round. He won't improve on his final lap. Vierke, Locatelli, Gardner and Bassani rounding out your top 10. So the promoters relegated somewhat as the session went on. The Hondas taking 4th and 7th places. And then outside of your top 10, Scott Redding and Andrea Iannone. And ultimately, I think they might be a little bit disappointed, both of them, to find themselves there, given the performance of the Ducati, particularly the Ducati of Sam Lowe's up in P5.
Yeah, they're a second off Budica's pace, around about a half second off Sam's pace as well. So work to be done and time to be found. But we'll see what the afternoon session brings. Obviously for Iannone, the crash at the start of the session makes it pretty difficult for him, but still able to put in 15 laps. So he was able to get in a decent amount of laps during the course of this session. Obviously the same couldn't be said for the likes of Bautista. Even Michael van der Mark only got 9 or 10 laps in during the course of the session. So the crashes can be quite costly.
Quick word on Jonathan Rea on his comeback from injury as well. 19 laps completed, 1.5 seconds down on P1. Work to do, obviously 6/10 on teammate Andrea Locatelli, but as a first session back after injury, to put 19 laps on the board, I think that's a decent effort from Jonathan Rea.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the end of the session. If you wish to watch the whole session, will be available on JB Motorsports later on with commentary from the first 20 minutes. Apologies for the technical issues. We'll be back for free practice 2, and that'll be at 2 o'clock here in the UK, 3 p.m. Central European Time. We'll see you later on. From us all here. Bye for now.